summoned you here for a purpose.
TransformYourGame.net.
Welcome one, welcome all, and welcome back to the 26th episode of the Transform Your Game podcast. And as some of you might know by this point, my name is Richard. I have sneakily commandeered a position as the host and moderator of this cast here today, and I'm also joined by my two lovely co-hosts, who are more than just meets the eye. Kent.
I'm about to do to you what Limp Bizkit did to music in the late 90s.
And Kai.
No, this is Patrick.
And on top of the traditional wonky intro we normally have, we do sincerely wish all of you out there a big hey there from all the members of our team, both past and present. Today is somewhat of an anomaly for us, as we really don't have that much in the way of housekeeping. There are really only so many things to talk about at this point, or in this very time, and we're awaiting things like the upcoming Alpha Trion Protocol's first release. They got retrofacing stratagems, which, by the way, we're really closing in on and might actually be starting to trickle out by the time this podcast releases, so stay tuned in that case. One of the really cool things that has been going on lately is in the multiplayer realm in the form of Primus. Now, if you haven't gotten a chance to check out and or try out that format with your family, playgroup, or friends over webcam, you really ought to. On our YouTube channel, actually, we've got some gameplay illustrating just how much fun we have gathering each week to jam some games, and there's much more in store in regard to that. There is one more thing going on right now, and it's actually especially important because it constitutes a major reason we picked the topic we have for discussion this episode. The September tournament in VectorSigma.info's Alpha Trion Tournament Series is being run in the Junkion format. Now, we've mentioned Junkion kind of offhandedly before on previous episodes of the cast, with spoilers and stuff, but Kai is actually here to give you a quick breakdown of what playing Junkion actually means, in case you aren't familiar. Take it away, Kai.
All right, so in Junkion, it's pretty much the same thing as constructed. You have 25 stars for your teams. You have 40 card minimum for your deck. Normal sideboard rules. The only difference really is that you're only allowed to use characters, battle cards, and stratagems that have the common rarity with the C, basically. And as well as specifically for the Vector Sigma Junkion tournament, there is also a ban list of Wave 4 Sergeant Springer, Raider Tailwind, and Pirate Powertrain. And yeah, that's pretty much the main gist of it. It's pretty fun, actually. I have only just gotten recently to build a deck, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Wave 4 is just has so much power in it. You know, I mean, Springer Tailwind were major players in like full constructed, so you can only imagine that in a reduced character pool, they're just kind of dominating. And I think Powertrain kind of got looped up in the overpoweredness of Tailwind as it is widely accepted. I think Powertrain died for the sins of Tailwind is what I'm trying to say. And
well, yeah, I think if Tailwind didn't die, everyone was going to play that, but since Tailwind died, everyone was going to play Powertrain, so he kind of had to take the fall too.
It was very much like a dominoes. I totally agree. Yeah. But one is less offensive than the other, and one's an Autobot, so, you know. All right, so guys, seriously though, what do you think of this choice of format for the tournament? Are you looking forward to it, and how do you think it compares to the current Wave 5 constructed metagame, you know, the base format?
I'm definitely looking forward to this format. It seems quite a bit of fun and different, and will make people think possibly differently about the game. And most importantly, I think it's more balanced than Wave 5, and mostly because there's no Titan Masters. So that is a breath of fresh air to me.
I know. Man, can you imagine what it'd be like to sit across the table from not Grax?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really great because with the reduction of Titan Masters and the card pool being reduced, we actually have in this format a sort of how do I say, like the raw core of what the Transformers gameplay is. Yeah, and like just playing that again and experiencing again is like reminded me why I like this game so much. So I'm really excited to play this format for sure.
Dude, me too. I've actually been a proponent of this format for a little while. We had a couple Pauper nights. I guess Pauper, the equivalent in Magic, But Junkion, we've had a couple of nights where I had some like new players come in and test Junkion on basically on the selling point that like these are all commons, and this is super cheap to pick up. I have decks, you can borrow them, and some of them were converts from other card games that I've dabbled in before, but they all loved it for one. And one of my friends who has played off and on but isn't like part of the regular play group, he came in for the first time in any of our games. He beat me in Junkion, and just to irk Dan, who I know is listening out there somewhere, he beat me by top decking Piercing Blaster for lethal. So
What a card.
I know. But I'm super excited for this format. The idea of not saying Titan Masters makes me so happy. I actually think that like Wave 5, outside of Titan Masters, gave like Junkion as a format some really awesome cards. And I haven't gotten to play with really many of the Wave 5 cards, only a couple of them in some test games. But I played extensively before then. So I think that's probably enough jibber jabber. You guys want to just pop straight into the actual discussion?
Let's do it.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. All right, now there haven't been many like publicly hosted or publicly run events for the Junkion format. So one of the things that we get to talk through here today is some of the breakdowns and key things to keep in mind when building for it yourself out there, or since not everyone is familiar or aware of what to look out for. I think we'll address characters first, and I know that leading up to the Alpha Trion tournament that you guys, Kent and Kai, have done a little research yourselves into the characters available for your Junkion lineups. So what are some of the quote-unquote all-stars people should think about using or be aware of from the other side of the table?
Well, one of the main all-stars that you should be looking at is an all-star in Constructed, and that's Crankcase. That guy is strong, and the fact that he's a common means that he's going to be a powerhouse in this format. I wouldn't actually be surprised if he's like the centerpiece of like every single blue deck that everyone plays, because honestly, he's just really good. He's really easy to turn on because of things like mission briefing and scouting mission, and as well as he draws cards himself. But yeah, just being able to be 8 attack for fairly easy requirements is a pretty strong contender, in all honesty, for a character to base your deck around in Junkion.
Totally agree. So, I mean, I want to say this. Crankcase is the card that, like, when I think we talked about him in spoilers, and when I looked at him like a common, I went, man, 8 attack on a 7-star common with reasonable health seems absolutely busted to me in that format. I think up until that point, there was one character who was able to get 8 attack without like any buffs to him. Well, we're going to cover that character, so no spoilers. But Crankcase is an absolute house. I think he might even make his way into some orange decks too, Kai, not just blue.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's very strong, so I would not be surprised if he appears in orange either.
Damage wins games. What can I say?
Mm-hmm.
Crankcase, yeah, there's lots of ways to keep your hand filled with him, even with Datapad. And I think if you're going orange, and that's what I was thinking because you mentioned it, a card that has never really seen a lot of constructed play, but I think is great if you're playing orange, is Sparkstalker. I mean, that guy, like, hey, if he has bold anything, you're gonna flip 3 cards and get to draw 2. And that can help your orange deck not run out of gas. That's usually the problem with a lot of orange decks. And in this format, that guy might be a really good pairing for Crankcase and an orange shell.
Finally, a Firecon would see play. Can you imagine? Can you imagine
that?
Ken, who are you most excited to see, or I guess like really looking out for?
Oh, I really like Dreadwing. I've always enjoyed that card, that combiner, I guess I should say. And at Origins, I played against a great one in top 32. Skylar Tipsword, I think, was piloting it.
Oh, he was one of my opponents near the end of day 1 of the EI. He was on Oa Shockwave.
Yeah. So he had his own build with Slipstream and was able to move a lot of damage with bombing runs and Slipstream's ability, of course, and all that. But I really like the idea of being able to transform early, and then, you have mission briefing, scouting mission, pep talk, Datapad, and security console to help keep your hand full after you have to make the major discord to combine them. After that, you're just like really hitting for a lot and can soak a lot and put multiple armors on the guy. Hey, let's throw some reinforced platings on him, and now some soldiers, blasters, and I think that guy
double
could be
security console.
Yeah.
That's the hotness. I have done that before. It is chef's kiss. Drawing 2 cards every time you defend when you're less wide than your opponent is absolutely beautiful. And because I'm me, I draw a handheld blaster every single time, so it goes back on the top of my deck every single time too.
Easy.
It's easy mode. Look, if you know, this is why I play Jetfire EI, because if you know you're gonna draw a handheld blaster, play a deck that wants it in its hand.
There you go.
Oh man, I think so. We're talking about stats. I mean, Dreadwing's stats are incredible. People don't talk about this, but like the untap that you get off the combine is a way to secretly like manufacture width. We've talked about in kind of like trying to attack the Wave 5 metagame and even the Wave metagames before it, is that manufacturing width is something that like the Cars archetype traditionally has done, and Dreadwing gets to do it. It's a one-shot ability in order for him to be able to do it, but it's not something to be discounted because you basically get 1 free attack with that character going as it is, and the next attack is going to be a big buffed attack, which is not something you should discount very easily, especially because he's just so durable as a character. I mean, 24 health is a ton, right? I guess on like the motif of stats, one of my favorite characters that I think is a little underappreciated, especially in regard to Junkion, is Sandstorm, the triple changer from Wave 4. He is a base 8 in his base mode if your opponent has any melee character while you're on the play. And then if you're on the draw, it's okay because you just sandbag and you swing for a million whenever they actually do swing with their melee character. And because he wants to be attacking in alt mode, he's already happy to wear a head-on collision. You know what I mean? But Sandstorm is one of those characters that I think it's not very flip intensive. He is 11 stars, so he's going to be your centerpiece character, which is something you have to keep in mind. But playing 2 7 stars is something that's pretty easily done. I think, what if there's a deck that's just all the 8 base guys, you're playing Crankcase, Sandstorm? I don't know. That sounds pretty dope to me. But Sandstorm is a card that I think has not gotten a ton of appreciation, and I really, really grew to love him before I started playing Junkion. In Sealed for Wave 4, like Wave 3, Wave 4 of Mixed Sealed, Sandstorm took me to great heights. Did a lot of work for me.
Yeah, funny enough, Sandstorm is the reason for why I was known as the morning undefeated king of Turbo for some reason. I don't know, everyone was just constantly saying that because I was winning. I just kept winning. And Sandstorm was the reason. So
is that a Faker reference for League of Legends? Maybe.
Not intentionally. I know of Faker, but I don't know of Faker.
Okay, so a quick aside. He is like the best mid laner to have ever played the game.
Player for sure.
Yeah. And his nickname was the undefeatable Demon King.
Oh.
So just saying. Anyway, not to steal your thunder. Go ahead, Guy. But I just thought I'd throw that aside in there.
No, it's fine. Yeah, Sandstorm is very solid, but there's also another powerhouse that is incredibly solid, and that is Ion Storm. Probably more infamous than Sandstorm, in all honesty, due to EI's sealed format. Sandstorm, if you got him, he was probably arguably the biggest bomb you could get. So. I don't see how he could be bad in this format, really, because 7 attack, 3 defense, good amount of health. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's a solid amount.
14? Is it 14?
14 sounds about right. 14.
You know what? We have this information at our fingertips. You keep talking, I'll pull it up and we'll pretend like we had it the whole time.
But yeah, he's incredibly solid. He's blank on his alt side, which is fine because you just want him for the stats because he's a big boy. But if you need him for abilities, he has immediate upgrade removal on his bot mode, so being able to just bounce and upgrade when he attacks is incredibly solid, and also a very good tempo piece if you are looking for something like that.
Oh yeah, especially if your opponent's only got upgrades in their hand, which is a thing that you can really happen, right? Like get trapped with upgrades in their hand. Ion Storm is dope. And first of all, I want to just point out, we got it right. 14 health, first try. Never didn't know it. But I mean, one of the cool things about Ion Storm is if they have an armor, you just get to swing at this 7-power dude who blanks their armor from their attack, which is just it's so good. It's so much info, and it's kind of backbreaking, especially when maybe they weren't anticipating that. Maybe some people forget what Ion Storm does. They just think 7-14-3. Okay, that's all he's got. He's a big boy, but the utility is important and something to keep in track. Although you need to make sure that you're not leaving him in that mode for too long once you attack with him, because he does lose a defense there. And I don't know if you've learned anything from Sealed, but people are going to focus your Ion Storm. And at 12 stars, him getting popped is a good way to lose your biggest offense.
For sure.
Cool. So another card that I think has great stats and great abilities is Bumblebee Trusted Lieutenant. Like, wow. I've been a big fan of this card since Wave 2, especially in a Cars shell. You may not have everything that you want for a Cars shell in Junkion, but he's still really, really strong. Attacking for 6 and then discarding an action to help you draw 2 more cards. That's just phenomenal. Yeah, and then hey, flip him and on your next turn, and now I have 2 actions this turn. So it's like a free brainstorm. I think you're gonna end up seeing this guy get played.
I think so, definitely. Just the consistent draw power that you get off this guy is really good. 14 HP for a 10-star is actually an incredibly efficient stat line, especially because in his base mode he's got 2 defense and then 6 base attack in the mode he wants to be attacking in anyway. I don't know how often you're going to use the play in action mode, in all honesty. I think it'll happen, but my guess is that that's more like, I want to do a thing and play a secret action this turn, so I guess I'll do that, right? Like I'll set my B up into his better defensive mode and play stable cover face down, and then I will pump one of my other guys for attack, or I'll draw cards, right? Like, you'll probably see those kind of setups where you just lets you kind of get out to a little bit faster start against maybe some of the more aggressive draws from your opponent. But generally speaking, I think you would take it if his alt mode was blank with the stat line that he's got.
Yeah.
Speaking of just kind of like we've run through several of these big bads, these huge statted characters, and I think one of the things that we've talked about this is that Blue has quite a few more tools in Junkion relative than they do in full constructed, because, and I think we've also talked about this ad infinitum, Blue has no tools in full constructed. So
Wow.
yeah, I know. So one of the things that's really important kind of is to remember is that Pierce kind of rules in a world where Blue is not everywhere but very prevalent. Pierce rules, and so one of the characters that I think is going to have a pretty big impact, especially for the low just opportunity cost of including the character in your team, is Brawn. Brawn is a 5-star character. He's not flip intensive because you want him to be attacking in his alt mode. He's got 9 health and 2 defense in his alt mode, so he's just a reasonably statted character. He's not flip intensive. He carries inborn Pierce. If you flip 1 black pip and 1 blue pip in his alt mode and he's attacking a 6-star or higher, that's Pierce 3 already. You're just 3 Pierce 3 with no buffs, no pumps, which is kind of incredible in all honesty. And then on top of that, he actually has a stratagem. He has resilience. Resilience is a common stratagem and an incredible defensive tool, especially since there are fewer combat pumps, particularly in orange in this format, but bold is still relatively common. So that's one of the things you can keep up is the survivability, of that character is actually considerably higher than you might at first think if you wanted to include resilience in your deck. Are there any other characters that, just kind of off the top of your head, or maybe just looking through the list, that you guys really feel inspired to talk about?
I think it's really easy to look at cards like Flame War, Bludgeon could be Bludgeon. Could be.
I like Bludgeon. I think we should motion to rename him Bludgeon.
Captain Astrotrain actually is pretty intriguing to me because there's not a ton of removal outside of reprocess, and you also have spare parts. Bashing Shield is there, of course, and Enforcement Batons. So, I'm not totally set on that. Sergeant Chromia, maybe she has something here. Just being able to draw all these extra cards with her, whenever you defend. I really like that quite a bit.
You did talk about Sparkstalker earlier, too.
Yeah, Sparkstalker, Impactor, and Barrage. I think you've got a bold deck there, so...
Yeah, and there's also Gears, which is incredibly relevant in this format because Bashing Shield is going to be everywhere. If not in just the orange deck, it's also going to be in the blue decks. But being able to shut that off as well as just things like... what is the melee thing? The Energon Slingshot? Things like that. You shut that down, which sounds crazy that I'm mentioning that card. But that card is actually one of the 6 or 7 actual pieces of direct damage in this format. So it's not crazy to actually consider playing that card.
What is crazy is that it's melee based. That's what's crazy, is that there's direct damage that's melee based, just because melee gets no love in full constructed.
Yep. But yeah, also, I think Nova Storm as well, and Nova Storm and or Brawn actually make up a orange-black team that I was actually considering. I was considering it, but I was so tired of playing orange-black that I just didn't want to play it. But it's basically the Rescue Patrol and Nova Storm, and you're basically just playing like the double blacks, or not all the double black, but the good ones with the orange blacks and the bold stuff, and you just crit your crit and you just go to town. Like, it's basically Burgle's bold in this format again. I don't know if anyone has cracked it before this podcast has aired. I hope no one has, but that is if someone cracks that, that's going to be a monster if they got the ratios right, at least.
I do have one more character that I'm actually looking at that I think is someone that you should keep in mind. And it's funny enough, Ken, that you mentioned Chromia. I think there's actually a better character to draw cards with, and that is Sergeant Mirage Special Ops Spy.
I was thinking about that guy too.
Yeah, especially with all the tools that Blue has in the format. He is a 4 base attack, 13 health 7-star. 13 health is, in a world where your opponent doesn't have Sky Shadow or Magray, quite a bit of health. There's still some direct damage options, but just the fact that Mirage can get tough 2 while you have secret actions in play. If you've got a Heidi Fort down, that is tough 5. That is a lot of tough. Now I'm sure he'll just get pierced to death anyway, because that's what happens in every game I ever play. But the fact is that they'll have to. You have to make them have it. That's the key.
He has the 13 health to counterbalance that pierce, so it's going to be a bit of a minute. So
we'll hope. We'll hope. I can't promise anything. Now, in addition to the characters, the battle card pool available to build from looks kind of like massively different from the normal swath of cards we have for traditional full constructed. There's a couple of themes I think that there are to notice and take to heart during deck building play, and most especially in combat. Kent, you want to kick us off with what I think is probably the number 1 theme to keep in mind?
Oh yeah, so weapons. Weapons have definitely changed for this format. There's no grenade launcher. There's no fusion borer, energon axe, your scoundrels or nobles blaster. But what I think is the most important weapon that you're going to see in almost every single deck, no matter blue, orange, or pierce based, is Soldier's Blaster. Just because you can pick it up and you also get a bonus against the opposing faction. Soldier's Blaster is really important. Of course, we're going to see Flamethrower, Erratic Lightning,
EM24 IR Laser Launcher.
That one. Even though it's a blank pip, it gives you such a boost that it's probably worth it in some decks. Also, one of my favorite cards is Drill Arms. Doesn't get a lot of play, but I really like that for popping force fields, reinforced plating. Even the Medic's Protective Field could see some play in this format. So
don't forget the secret mode on Drill Arms, which is +1 attack, draw a card.
Yes, exactly. That's why I like it, is it's so flexible.
Just remember that it doesn't work into Gears. Gears shuts it off.
And then Gears shuts it off.
No, seriously though, weapons are at a premium in Junkion. I think Erratic Lightning is a card that I've looked to play quite a bit of, especially when some of my characters like have base 1 defense anyway. You know, what's 0 to 1, right? Like you're gonna take basically the full attack. I think that Erratic Lightning being a +3 that stays around means it's really worth consideration. EM24 IR Laser Launcher, which will please somebody come up with a better like nickname for that card because it's such a nightmare to say the whole thing out.
Just say laser launcher.
Laser launcher, yeah.
It's so much funner.
Sure, Lele, we're gonna call it. It's Layla. We'll call it Layla.
Layla.
Because...
That works. I play Layla.
Yeah, I'll play Layla, head-on collision, swing for 11. Good lord, that's a lot. Wait, who's Layla? Oh my gosh. But yeah, man, you'll play basically anything. I think Kai mentioned earlier Energon Slingshot. Like, all jokes aside, I've played Energon Slingshot in this format and been successful with it. Like, the +1 that you get from some of these weapons is way more relevant here with the fact that while blue has more tools relative, you need to think that there's just like fewer. It's harder to build on color decks. That's actually the second theme I wanted to hit too. Funny enough, so full color decks are just harder to build. There's only one blue card and only one orange card in the format, because there's also no star cards available. So you just have Handheld Blaster and Improvised Shield, and I think we all know how terrible those cards are on their face. But flipping them in combat, they're just so good, so effective there that it's absolutely worth playing them. But the fact that they don't, like the blue decks don't have access to Security Checkpoint and Handheld Blaster means their defense numbers are going to look less like 7 and more like 4. There are going to be, instances where they get well and high above that, particularly with stacking lots of tough on certain characters. But those are things you need to keep account of. So the +1 that you get from some of these weapons that are maybe dinkier or less impressive is going to be really important. Playing copies of, maybe one copy of Sharpened Talons might not be the worst thing in the world. It really might. Like, I haven't played many Sharpened Talons. I know if anyone wants an expert on Sharpened Talons, go ask Jempty. That man loves some Sharpened Talons, especially in Primus. But seriously, like, it's just harder to build those monocolor decks. Like, you're going to see blue decks that are dotted with orange pips like Bashing Shield and Enforcement Batons, partially because those are just the most efficient pieces of removal. But you're also going to see orange decks that play some of like the blue cards, like that will play things like, I'm blanking off the top of my head, but they might play some Handheld Blasters, for example, just for the added potential flips on defense, and because they can probably make use of the actual bold. You might see a Brass Knuckles or two in an orange deck, just because it's a utility and thus can't get hit by things like Disassemble, which is a card to remember in the format. Remember that also, what that means is that the numbers on bold and tough are not going to be as guaranteed to add to the stat as you're used to. So tough 2 over the course of a game is probably going to be +2 most of the time, but it's going to be +1 a lot more often than you're used to from like some of the full constructed archetypes that you've seen. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're planning your attacks.
Yeah, but there's also another color in that triangle, and that is the black pip. And of course, Kami Crash is the most notable of the black pip cards because it is the only card that can do 2 damage indirectly to any bot you want.
Instant 3 of.
Yeah, 3 of in any deck. Any decks. It starts with 3 Kami and Crash.
Before you know, characters are on your lineup, 3 Kami and Crash.
Exactly. It's going to be everywhere, and it's rightfully so. It's the only card that can hit 2 damage off direct damage as well, and yeah, it's just a solid black card in general. But there's also other black cards like Precision Fire for orange black, as well as being the only AOE area of effect direct damage. And there's also Scouting Mission, which is incredible for its utility and modularity. There's also Disassemble, which Richard mentioned before, as well as Wedge Formation, which is always incredible, in my opinion anyways.
Yeah.
There's also some other ones I didn't remember. There's things like Unflinching Courage as well for like the Rescue Patrol that I was mentioning earlier, but also just Bold 2 is basically the number you want to hit if you're trying to play like an orange or a black deck. So
Yeah, if you want bold 2 out of, I mean, you get fight for position too, right? Like fight for position is a
Fight for
totally
position as well.
reasonable.
That was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, a totally reasonable combat like pump, right? And it's also a black pip, you know. So if you're looking at, I'm sure that orange black deck you were talking about earlier, Kai, had 3 fight for positions in it and 3 precision fires in it. I'm confident. I'm worried that it also had combat dagger in it. So please tell me it did.
Easy.
Oh man,
You never
God,
play that card because it's bold 1. You play that card because it's orange black. That's it.
Yep.
It's orange black. That's a weapon. You have to live with that.
man, I'm not sure I'll ever be able to play combat
I don't
dagger
think you
in
will.
Constructed. I like there are certain things. Every person has, ability given unto them, and mine just doesn't include putting combat dagger in my decks. Now, I have played smoke cloak in constructed decks, and it's totally reasonable, totally fine, very good card because there are just not very many blue-black cards, so the pickings are slim. But combat dagger is just so bad. It's just so bad.
It's so good as an orange black.
Yeah.
It's really just okay. It's more necessity. It's more like the fact that you have to play things like that, terrifying resilience, because there's just no orange blacks otherwise, which is perfectly fine problem to have, in all honesty.
Yeah, I mean, you'll play it on things like Nova Storm because it gives her Pierce 3 as well, so it's secretly better than Grav Inhibitor, right? Although Grav Inhibitor is Pierce 6, that's pretty dope, actually.
Yeah, but she's with 5 attack, so...
Yeah, just flip an orange black.
Easy
game. What are you talking about, man? Oh man, Kent, what else is there that we really need to keep an eye out for?
Well, if you know me, you know I love to draw cards, and there's plenty of draw in this format. So one of my favorites, as I mentioned, is Mission Briefing. You've got your Pep Talk for blue and Scouting Mission, another card I just love. Not only that, but you've got cards like Datapad and Security Console, which I love those cards because it's continuous draw. Like every time you attack with Datapad, you're going to get to draw something or defend with the Security Console. Fuel Communicator is another way to get another card off the top. If you have specialists on your team and just put that card directly into play. Love that card, obviously. Then you've got, of course, all the Cog Combo cards. Drill Arms, Scrapper Gauntlets, and Crushing Size. That also give you some innate pump to your stats and also allow you to draw a card if you're not removing one of your opponent's upgrades.
Yeah, I mean, I love including just some small number of the Drill Arms, Scrapper Gauntlets, Crushing Sides cards. You'd be surprised how many utilities there are that you want to actually KO. Spare parts, you want to hit the bold 2 or tough 2 ones from wave 5. I think Minor Medic Kit is legal in the format, if I'm not mistaken, too.
Yes, it's also incredibly prevalent.
Plus 2 health is a lot. You think plus 2 health isn't a lot, but then you think about how relevant Enhanced Power Cell has been in so many games, and you're like, 2 is just not that much less than 3. It just really isn't. Especially for some of the characters who just have that middling level of health, in the 12-13 range. Once you bump it to 14-15, the characters start to look a lot more resilient. Just generally speaking, for what the average damage output's going to be. But, man, I mean, I think, let's see. I think that while those cards are some of my favorites to include, I think they're less automatic. They're more like flex slot includes for me. I'm much more about the mission briefings, the pep talks of the world. But my actions are kind of constrained, and one of the things I want to talk about is the fact that what combat pumps look like. So people who have played regular constructed and played a lot of combat pumps, I think one of the most iconic ones is probably Reckless Charge. That card's not legal in this, right? And one of the things that we didn't mention specifically in the weapons up top was that the +4 weapons aren't legal in this. You have no Master Sword. You have no Grenade Launcher. You have no Paralyzo Box. And I know Paralyzo Box is normally a +0 weapon, but when it is a +4 weapon, it's very good. So combat pumps actually look pretty good in this format. You don't lose a lot of power on that front, right? We mentioned fight for position earlier. I think one of the other ones that you need to look at is Supercharge. Just Supercharge is totally legal in this format, and while it's harder to make that bold 3 look like a +4 or 5, it is still pretty easy to make it look like a +3. Speaking of plus 3s, you also have head-on collision. And I think I mentioned Sandstorm earlier. There are several characters who want to be attacking in alt mode or find attacking in alt mode, right? Ion Storm, while he doesn't get to return and upgrade in this mode, is still a 7 base attacker in his alt mode and will happily wear a head-on collision. That's just 2 examples, right? On top of that, you also have lock-on target for bold 4 if you're willing to play a blank or situational blue in your deck. With what do you call it? With Airstrike Patrol legal, lock-on target is absolute insanity. But without Tailwind, that card is still just bold 4. Like, that's no joke. And then I think the most impactful one from Wave 5, as far as combat pumps goes, is Blade Flurry. We talked about with how important it was to have weapons that either stayed around or gave some kind of additional bonus to your character. And even just getting the extra +2 out of Blade Flurry for having something dinky on your character like an Energon Slingshot, which I think I've railed on twice now in this episode, maybe 3 times. Probably more, but at least 2 times. Blade Flurry is just insane. Like, it being the only +4 in the actual format, only guaranteed, I guess, +4 in the format, is something that you really, really need to keep an eye on. But you can only play so many blanks, so it is creating some tension in your deck before your combat flips are really starting to hurt. I actually have a question for you guys on I don't know how much you play with this card specifically, but what do you think of the card Designated Target as quote unquote a combat pump?
Orange-black is a problem.
Orange-black is a problem.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Honestly, if they wanted to ban a battle card, like, that one might be a good one to do. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how the tournament plays out first. I mean, but it just seems like, oh no. Like, they can just erase one of your characters, especially if they're playing like a Burgos Bold type deck. And, they're super, super wide. Maybe they're playing Ready for Action as well to get extra untaps.
Yeah.
And then here comes the wheel turn. Designated Target. All right, your best guy, deleted.
Yeah, it's Designated Target is easily one of the best double blacks in the format, especially for the orange-black decks.
I think it's worth playing outside of the orange-black decks in some sense, like in some number, right? Just like the idea that maybe you're going to play against like Dreadwing, which naturally becomes less wide than you as a team, and you'll likely get to swing multiple guys into. I think if Designated Target earns you guaranteed 4 damage, the card is worth playing, right? And so anytime you can kind of like look at a situation where you are likely to, or you might be able to attack with multiple characters in one combat, then Designated Target's a card you should absolutely put in your, maybe not your main deck, but maybe you can include it in your sideboard as part of your like tech to out blue the blue, maybe. Just an idea.
Sure.
A couple other like combat pumps that might be good. Calculated Strike. That's not bad. And of course, one of my favorite blue pumps, Leap into Battle.
The staple. The combat staple.
Yeah. How did I not mention that already? My goodness. I apologize. Everybody listening at home, I can't believe I haven't mentioned Leap into Battle before right now. I greatly apologize.
Play it. Play in your deck, please.
Leap into Battle and Leap into Battle is one of those cards that you'll see orange decks splash for. I knew I was thinking of a card earlier specifically that wasn't Handout Blaster. It was Leap into Battle. My goodness. Oh, maybe I should have had coffee before this podcast.
Slipping in your old age.
I mean, I feel like I've aged a million years during this quarantine.
So
true. True. We got one more for them as far as like the themes go. So what are we wrapping it up with?
It's the last one, but it's a good one. Secret actions are still good and probably better than constructed because of the fact that there's no counter espionage. So we're going back to Wave 4 and they are uninteractable again. So
just how Richard Garfield intended.
Just exactly.
Laugh out loud.
I didn't even think he was involved in this game at all. So apologies to the actual design team. Thank you guys seriously for everything you've done for us. But man, interacting with secret actions is just busted.
I mean, to be fair, it's kind of necessary, but yeah, it is kind of nice to go back to that Wave 4 where they can't do anything about your hiding fort. Thankfully, there's no sabotage armament, so there's no that much feels bad, but hidden fortification is still pretty strong. There's also hold the line, And Hold Down also is also a pretty good contention because Tough 4 is pretty good, if I say so myself.
I mean,
And
you're
also, of
forgetting
course,
yeah, go ahead.
there's also Stable Cover as well for the
My favorite.
counter. Yeah, for the counter for the orange blacks. If you draw, of course. But
Nice designated target, sir.
Exactly.
get countered.
I also get a defense. I love Stable Cover. Stable Cover is one of those cards that, like,
solid.
when I started playing, I used to put like maybe a Stable Cover 2 on my sideboard, and then as people started to play more and more Pierce, because I played really defensive blue decks, in case that wasn't obvious to anybody who's listened to more than one episode of this podcast. Shout out to Extra Padding. But Stable Cover eventually just became an auto 3 of any of my decks that were blue. It was just auto 3 Stable Cover. I haven't played as much of it in this format. You can only play so many non-blue pips in your blue decks, but you still have to play it in some number, because like just some of those turns, oh my gosh, it'll just be like bold 5. I'm just waiting for like all the orange blacks will just be like 8 Pierce 8, and you'll just die out of nowhere. Your character will just get completely KO'd. But if you have Stable Cover, then
Stable Cover though,
you just take like 5.
seems good.
Yeah, it feels like between Stable Cover and Designated Target, it's going to be an arms race quite a bit.
Thank God neither of them have green on them.
Yeah, no
They
joke.
also, neither of them affects combat outside of that, right? They're both black pips. So it's not orange-black, it's not blue-black, it's not these problematic, like, multi-main color cards, right? The main color cards are super innocuous. We've got the combat daggers of the world, which will never make it into my decks. And we've also got the scouting missions of the world, which will make it into all of my decks.
Easy.
Easy. Oh, man. Okay, so, pardon my cough into the microphone. I'm sure that was lovely for the viewers at home. With all the things we've covered so far today, what do you guys think are going to rise to the top? What are going to be some of the archetypes that really show themselves to be the cream of the crop in the September Alpha Trion tourney?
I do think that Orange Bold has some legs. Like what we were saying, Barrage, Sparkstalker, Impactor, Sandstorm, characters that can really take advantage of it and get huge, and, possibly even Crankcase, just giant numbers. But then you've got blue with whole bunch of defense and secret actions to help keep them alive with Hold Down, Hold the Line, and Heidi Ford, of course. Don't forget Reinforced Plating. That'll be there. Force Fields, but I think what's going to end up doing the best is a multicolored Pierce deck. I just feel like that can get some heavy numbers with not only Pierce, but raw attack. Also,
they have Hit and Run too. Hit and Run just being a white-black pip is just fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And, pumping up Brawn because you're playing multicolor. So you're probably playing Lock on Target and Supercharge, Flamethrower, fight for position. And you're just like, let's just pierce you down. And I think it's going to be really, really difficult to compete with that when they're like ready for action and they just keep untapping. And hey, guess what? Here's Designated Target and you're done.
So
The only untap is what's it called?
Ready for Action?
Ready for Action and Private Tote. Don't forget that guy.
Oh yeah, Tote does untap.
Oh wow.
6-hour low now. So it's new orders, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, still, if you're, I don't know. The problem is that he doesn't get the rest of the off-road patrol, because Powertrain doesn't have the Lord action out there. But I guess you could play him in tandem as one of the other patrols. That doesn't sound that bad.
Doesn't sound too bad.
I think Rescue Patrol aggro is going to be probably something to keep an eye out for. Or some patrol aggro. I think Rescue Patrol, because the white, it's pretty easy to crit a crit in the format. And so you can just do some pretty gross numbers on some pretty small dudes, and you still just have quite a few stars left to go alongside them. That's something that I think is probably going to be pretty good.
Yeah, if I wasn't tired of playing Orange Black, I would have been playing Rescue Patrol and Nova Storm, and I would have been having a field day because I have that ratio down to a lock. But it'll be interesting to see if other people have that figured out that ratio or not.
I love the humble brag here from Kai. I have the tournament on lock, but I'm not gonna win it because I want to play something fun.
I want to relieve some of my sanity and play some blue in a format where blue looks pretty good for once.
I will say this is kind of telling about Pierce in the Transformers Wave 5 and now Junkion formats. It might be a little strong, and we might need some real answers besides like, hope I draw my stable cover. Oh, I haven't drawn it in 5 games, even though I have 3 main deck. So for the groups that are creating cards, we might need some real answers to Piers. Please,
We hear you,
please,
kid. We hear
God,
you.
please.
We hear you. I will say this: if you were good, you would just draw that stable cover, though.
Oh, that's right, of
Yeah,
course.
man.
Of course.
Oh man. Kai, what would you expect? I know I stole your answer probably with the Rescue Patrol aggro, but
No, I think the Rescue Patrol it's really, I've only heard like 1 or 2 people on about it, and I don't know if anyone will figure it out, but honestly for me, I think Rescue Patrol would have been my choice if I didn't want to save my sanity, but I think blue is going to be incredibly popular because of the reasons that I listed for why I'm playing blue in this tournament. So, yeah, I think things like Crankcase and Trusted Lieutenant Bumblebee, whatever his name is, Epithet, whatever. Ion Storm, those types of blue decks, I think will be pretty popular. So, if someone figured out the orange-black code, well, I hope there are people who are ready for it because, yeah.
I do have one. If anybody out there is listening and you registered Raider Chop Shop for this event, if you win this event, I will Venmo you $10.
There you go.
Ooh.
Because
you won't hear it because it'll be sent because your deck list will be sent in before then. But there you go.
No, but this is a promise. I'm Scouts honor. I only did 1 year of Scouts. I quit. My parents would let me go camping, but that's not the point. The point that I'm trying to make here is that I love Raider Chop Shop, and if you win that tournament with him, you are absolutely deserving of every 10 of those dollars.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. I love Raider Chop Shop as well.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I think that we'll take it out after that. Honestly, for us, that's a pretty quick episode. That will bring us to the close of episode 26 of the Transform Your Game podcast. We'd like to give a super massive set of shout outs to you, the listeners out there in the ether, wherever you are, for giving us the purpose to come in, record, and cover all these wonderful tidbits surrounding the Transformers TCG. All our teammates at Transform Your Game greatly appreciate your time and attentiveness here today. You can find our other episodes and more down the line on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify. There will certainly be some links for you guys in the description to help you out and find us. And if you found the input information here valuable, you can find more strategy, analysis, tournament reports, and more like it at transformyourgame.net. We look forward to being back to speak to all y'all 2 weeks from now, but until that time, clear eyes, flip bots, can't lose.